Have you ever had a moment that changed your life in an instant? A single decision, a spontaneous action, or a chance encounter that set you on a completely new path? This is the story of a young woman who, in a split second, went from being an unknown enthusiast to a sought-after professional photographer. It all started with a simple photobomb. Imagine you're at a bustling event, camera in hand, capturing moments as they unfold. You're not famous, not even close. You're just someone who loves photography. But then, out of nowhere, a celebrity steps into your frame. Not just any celebrity, but one whose presence turns your ordinary shot into an extraordinary one. That moment, that unexpected intrusion, becomes the catalyst for a series of events that will forever alter your life. This isn't just a tale of luck or coincidence. It's a story about seizing opportunities, about how a single photograph can open doors you never imagined. It's about the power of being in the right place at the right time and being ready when that moment arrives. As you watch this story unfold, think about your own life. What moments have you let slip by unnoticed? What opportunities have you missed because you weren't prepared? This story isn't just hers, it's a reminder that your next big break could be one click away. So, stay with us. By the end of this video, you'll understand how a simple photobomb can lead to a career, a passion, and a life you never thought possible. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be inspired to take that next step toward your own unexpected journey. Don't go anywhere. The best part is yet to come. As the camera clicked, capturing the candid moment, she had no idea that this seemingly insignificant action would set off a chain of events that would alter the course of her life. In the midst of a crowded event, she had innocently photobombed a celebrity's selfie, unknowingly inserting herself into a world she had only ever observed from a distance. The celebrity, amused by the unexpected intrusion, shared the photo on social media, and the image quickly went viral. What followed was a whirlwind of attention, curiosity, and unexpected opportunities. But who was she? To the public, she was just another face in the crowd, an anonymous figure who had momentarily shared the spotlight with a star. However, beneath the surface, her life was far from ordinary. She had always been passionate about photography, capturing moments of beauty and emotion through her lens. Yet, she had never considered turning this passion into a profession. Her days were spent working a mundane job that barely paid the bills, while her nights were dedicated to honing her craft, experimenting with different techniques, and dreaming of a life where she could make a living doing what she loved. The viral photo changed everything. Suddenly, she was thrust into the limelight, her name circulating among industry professionals and influencers. Offers began to pour in, requests for collaborations, invitations to events, and even job offers from renowned photographers who had taken notice of her unique perspective. It was a dream come true, yet it was also overwhelming. She found herself at a crossroads, torn between the safety of her current life and the uncertain but exciting path that lay ahead. As she navigated this new world, she encountered individuals who seemed to have her best interests at heart but whose motivations were unclear. There was the charismatic influencer who offered to mentor her, yet his intentions seemed to blur the lines between professional guidance and personal interest. Then, there was the established photographer who saw her as a potential protégé but whose past was shrouded in rumors and whispers. Each encounter left her questioning who she could trust and whether the opportunities presented to her were genuine or merely stepping stones for others to advance their own agendas. Despite the allure of fame and success, she remained grounded in her passion for photography. She was determined to carve out her own niche, to build a career that was authentic and true to her vision. But the path was fraught with challenges. The pressure to conform to industry standards, the fear of losing her creative identity, and the constant scrutiny from the public eye weighed heavily on her. Each decision felt monumental, each step forward accompanied by the fear of misstep. In the midst of this turmoil, she received an unexpected invitation to photograph a high-profile event that promised to be a turning point in her burgeoning career. It was an opportunity she couldn't afford to pass up, yet it came with its own set of complications. The event was being organized by a powerful figure in the industry, someone whose reputation was both revered and feared. Accepting the assignment meant aligning herself with this individual, potentially opening doors to unparalleled success but also entangling her in a web of influence and power dynamics she was ill-prepared for. As the day of the event approached, she found herself grappling with doubt and uncertainty. Was she ready for this? Could she navigate the complexities of the industry without compromising her values? And most importantly, could she trust those who had entered her life under the guise of mentorship and friendship? The lines between ally and adversary had become increasingly blurred, and she was unsure whom to trust. lmcfadzia.com. In the final moments before the event, as she stood backstage, camera in hand, the weight of her decisions pressed down upon her. This was her moment, her chance to prove herself, to show the world that she was more than just a photobomber. But as she prepared to step into the spotlight, a sudden realization struck her. The true challenge wasn't capturing the perfect shot, it was navigating the intricate dance of relationships, trust, and ambition that defined the world she had entered. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, ready to face whatever awaited her. The camera clicked, and the story continued. As the days passed since the event, the whirlwind of attention began to settle, but the questions lingered. She had become a sensation overnight, her unexpected photobomb turning her into a viral star. Yet, beneath the surface of newfound fame lay a growing unease. The opportunities that had flooded in felt too perfect, too orchestrated, as if someone had been pulling strings behind the scenes. One evening, while reviewing her portfolio, she noticed something odd. A series of photos she had taken at the event, a candid shot of the celebrity laughing, a close-up of a whispered conversation, were missing. They had been among her best work, the ones she had intended to showcase to potential clients. Panicked, she searched her files, but they were gone. No trace, no backup. It was as if they had never existed. Confused and frustrated, she turned to her mentor, the established photographer who had taken an interest in her. He had been supportive, offering guidance and encouragement. But when she mentioned the missing photos, his demeanor shifted. He became evasive, suggesting it was probably a technical glitch and advising her not to dwell on it. His reaction unsettled her. It felt like he was hiding something. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, she began to investigate. She reached out to other photographers who had been at the event, hoping to find someone who had captured the same moments. But each inquiry was met with silence or vague responses. It was as if the event had been scrubbed from existence. As she dug deeper, she uncovered unsettling details. The event had been organized by a powerful figure in the industry, someone with a reputation for manipulating situations to their advantage. Rumors swirled about their involvement in various scandals, but no concrete evidence ever surfaced. It was as if they operated in the shadows, untouchable and elusive. Her suspicions grew when she received an anonymous message: "Stop digging. Some things are better left buried." The message sent a chill down her spine. Who had sent it? And why? Was someone trying to intimidate her into silence? The more she uncovered, the more entangled she became in a web of deceit and manipulation. Her mentor's true intentions remained unclear, and the line between ally and adversary blurred. She was caught in a game she hadn't signed up for, with stakes higher than she had ever imagined. With each passing day, the pressure mounted. She had to decide: continue her quest for the truth, risking everything she had worked for, or walk away and let the past remain hidden. But the deeper she delved, the more dangerous the game became. Trust was a commodity she could no longer afford, and the truth seemed more elusive than ever. As she sat alone, contemplating her next move, the phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Her heart raced as she answered, bracing herself for whatever revelation awaited her on the other end. "You think you know what's going on?" the voice on the line asked, low and menacing. "You're just scratching the surface. There's more at play here than you realize." Before she could respond, the line went dead. The words echoed in her mind, amplifying her fears and uncertainties. Who was behind this? And what did they want from her? The twists and turns of her journey had led her to a precipice. One wrong move, one misstep, could send her tumbling into a world of danger and deceit from which there might be no return. But she couldn't turn back now. The truth was within reach, and she was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. As she prepared to confront the shadows lurking in the corners of her new world, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every glance over her shoulder, every unexpected noise, heightened her sense of paranoia. The walls seemed to close in, and the line between reality and illusion blurred. And then, just as she was about to take a decisive step forward, she received another message. This one was different. It contained a single photograph, one she had never seen before. In it, she was standing in the background of a scene she didn't remember being part of, her face obscured by shadows. The caption read, "You were always meant to be here." The implications were chilling. Had her every move been anticipated? Was she merely a pawn in a larger scheme? The questions multiplied, and the answers seemed to slip further out of reach. With the walls closing in and the truth tantalizingly close, she faced a choice: continue her pursuit, risking everything, or retreat into the safety of ignorance. But in this game, ignorance was no longer an option. The stakes were too high, and the consequences of inaction too dire. As she steeled herself for the challenges ahead, she couldn't help but wonder, who was orchestrating this elaborate game? And what was their endgame? The answers lay ahead, hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. And so, with resolve hardening in her chest, she took the first step into the unknown, ready to confront whatever truths awaited her. The journey was far from over, and the real story was just beginning. Just as she was beginning to process the cryptic photograph and the unsettling message that came with it, something happened that twisted the mystery even further. Her best friend, MIA, someone who had been by her side long before the fame and chaos, suddenly became entangled in the narrative. MIA wasn't part of the photography world. She worked as a content strategist for a small digital agency, but she had always supported her, encouraged her to chase her dreams, and even helped her edit and curate her first digital portfolio. The two had shared late nights talking about what life could be like if things ever took off. But now, MIA had received something that changed everything: a package, unmarked, delivered to her apartment in the early hours of the morning. Inside was a printed photo of the same celebrity event, but with a chilling difference. The crowd was blurry, the lighting distorted, and the only clear image was of MIA herself, staring directly at the camera, as if she had been caught in a moment she didn't remember. What made it worse was that MIA had never attended the event. They both sat on Mia's couch, holding the photo, speechless. The photo was real, printed on the same type of glossy paper her camera used, but there were no file names, no digital footprint, no metadata. When they compared it with her camera's memory card backups, it didn't exist anywhere in her known records. Someone had access to photos she'd never taken. Someone had access to their lives in ways neither of them understood. And then came the second message, this time handwritten, tucked in the envelope's seam. She wasn't supposed to know. The implications rattled them both. Who was watching? Why target MIA? And what was she not supposed to know? Had MIA been involved in something deeper, unknowingly tied into a network that neither of them could see? For the first time, the main character began to doubt her entire timeline. She retraced her steps from the day of the event, backtracking to see if anyone strange had approached her, or if anything had felt off. She remembered a moment backstage where a man in a security uniform, who didn't quite seem to belong, had asked to see her event pass, something no one else had questioned until then. At the time, it felt like a standard precaution. Now, she wondered if it had been something more, a way for someone to confirm her identity or take note of her presence. When she described him to MIA, her face went pale. MIA remembered seeing the same man weeks earlier, outside her office building, though she hadn't thought much of it then. A coincidence? Or had they both been watched for longer than they realized? The deeper they dug, the more contradictions surfaced. A video that had once confirmed her photobomb moment suddenly disappeared from the celebrity's feed. Archived copies remained, but the comments were turned off, and the post's engagement had been artificially suppressed. Someone was actively erasing pieces of the narrative, changing the record as if they were trying to rewrite history. Yet the more evidence was scrubbed, the more determined she became to uncover what lay beneath. But every path forward introduced more questions. People she had trusted, people who had supported her ascent, were now suspicious by their very silence. Her mentor no longer returned her calls. The influencer who had once boasted about helping her blow up on Instagram had gone completely dark. Even brands that had reached out with promising collaborations suddenly withdrew, citing vague reasons like a change in campaign direction or creative misalignment, though the pattern felt far too convenient. Then came the news report, buried deep within a local feed, barely noticed by the wider public, but it hit her like a freight train. A whistleblower from the event's production crew had allegedly come forward claiming that surveillance footage from the night of the celebrity gala had been tampered with. Not deleted, altered. Faces blurred, timestamps shifted, entire camera angles missing. The report didn't name names, and the source had apparently gone missing days after the tip was submitted. There was no follow-up, no further articles, almost like it had been buried. But the detail that shook her to the core was the mention of a young female photographer being a person of interest in the altered footage. No name was listed, but she knew it pointed to her. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a random photobomb that turned into a career break. It was about something much larger, something possibly premeditated. Had she been set up? Had her rise been part of a manipulated narrative designed for reasons beyond her control? Or was she simply a bystander in a much more sinister game, chosen because of a spontaneous moment that someone else saw value in? The more she questioned her role, the more uncertain everything became. Even MIA began to wonder if their connection was accidental or deliberate, if her involvement was truly as innocent as it had always seemed. The doubts began to wear them down, but neither of them could walk away anymore. Too many threads were tangled. Too many things didn't add up. And then, just when they thought they had caught a break, an old acquaintance from her photography class messaged her, claiming to have found something important about the original photobomb image. They arrived at the meeting point only to find the place trashed, the person missing, and a wall covered in blurry black and white prints of her face, distorted and overlapping, with one sentence scribbled across in red ink: "The truth isn't behind you. It's been in front of you all along." What did it mean? Was the enemy someone in plain sight? Someone she had trusted all along? Or was the entire story built on a foundation of lies so deep, even she couldn't tell what was real anymore? And just like that, everything she thought she knew was flipped upside down once more. The darkness came slowly at first, subtle in its arrival like a creeping shadow just beyond the periphery. But then it descended fully, unmistakably, violently, and without warning. It began the night she returned to her apartment and noticed something slightly off. Nothing was missing, but something wasn't right. Her favorite lens had been moved a few inches from where she'd last left it. Her framed photographs on the wall were just slightly crooked, as if someone had stood too close and nudged them while moving. The curtain had been pulled a few inches further than usual, letting in the barest sliver of moonlight that now cut across her living room floor like a spotlight. She stood in the doorway for nearly 5 minutes, keys clutched in one hand, frozen in place as she scanned every object for confirmation that it wasn't just her mind playing tricks on her. But deep down, she knew. Someone had been in her space. She changed the locks that night, double-checked the windows, and put tape over the cracks in the doorframe to catch even the slightest tampering. But no matter what she did, sleep refused to come. The feeling that she was no longer in control of her life now haunted every quiet moment. What started as a whirlwind of opportunity had twisted into something far more insidious. She began to notice patterns in her routine that were no longer hers alone. The same black car parked across the street every morning, always with a tinted rear window that never lowered. The man in the navy hoodie at the coffee shop who never ordered anything but sat just close enough to overhear her calls. The strange static that had begun to interrupt her phone conversations, right before they dropped completely. It was all too targeted to be coincidence, and too careful to be random. When MIA didn't show up for their usual weekly lunch, panic clawed its way into her chest like a sudden wind choking out a flame. She called and texted repeatedly. No response. By evening, she drove to Mia's apartment, only to find the door ajar. The place had been ransacked, not like a robbery, but like someone had been looking for something very specific. Papers scattered, drawers opened and left hanging, her laptop gone. The one chilling detail that stopped her cold was Mia's whiteboard, the one she always used to track content schedules. All the notes had been erased. In their place, a single sentence was scrawled in thick black marker: "She asked the wrong questions." She stood there, trembling, unable to breathe, feeling the weight of the threat settle over her like a shroud. This wasn't just about her anymore. MIA had been pulled in because of her, and now she was gone. For the first time, she truly felt fear seep into her bones. Real fear. The kind that gnaws at your stomach and keeps your limbs locked in place, that fills your lungs like smoke and makes you doubt your own eyes. Every sound became a potential threat, every shadow something alive. She started having dreams where she was running through a fog-covered city, always just behind someone whose face she could never see, always too late to stop something terrible from happening. She'd wake up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, convinced she was being watched. And the worst part? She couldn't tell anyone. Every person who had once offered help had either disappeared, gone silent, or turned suspiciously cold. She stopped posting online. Stopped answering unknown calls. But the silence wasn't safety, it was isolation, and it made the danger feel even closer. She tried going to the police, nervously recounting everything she could without sounding paranoid or unhinged. The officer on duty listened, nodding occasionally, but ultimately offered only a generic response: "If you have evidence of trespassing or threats, we can take a report." But she knew what she had wasn't tangible enough. There were no fingerprints, no footage, nothing that screamed danger in a way they could log in their system. She left the station more defeated than when she'd arrived. Even the systems meant to protect her felt useless now. Desperate for clarity, she turned back to the last photo, the one with the eerie caption, "You were always meant to be here." She enlarged it, studied it pixel by pixel. In the background, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for, was a reflection in a glass pane. A faint silhouette of a figure, standing just beyond the camera's frame. She had seen this person before. Not in real life, but in a forgotten screenshot from weeks ago, a tagged post on someone else's story, an anonymous figure captured briefly at the same celebrity event. She remembered dismissing it at the time, thinking it was just another guest. But now, the presence in both images felt like a signature, like someone taunting her with their invisibility. The paranoia took on new dimensions. She began to question every memory. Had this started before the photobomb? Were there clues she'd missed even earlier? She dug into her old files, her early photo logs, even flipping through dusty memory cards from years ago, and to her horror, she found the same silhouette again. In a street photo she took over a year ago, blurry, on the edge of the crowd. The same build, the same posture. It wasn't just recent. Whoever this was, they had been following her long before she knew she was being watched. Nothing made sense anymore. Every answer only raised new questions. Why her? What was so important about a random photo that it triggered a string of disappearances, threats, and surveillance? And why was someone going to such great lengths to manipulate the past and erase pieces of the truth? She wasn't famous. She wasn't political. She was just someone who loved taking photos, until now. Now she was something else, a target. And then, late one night, as she sat alone editing a series of images she no longer trusted to save to the cloud, the lights flickered once. Twice. Then went out completely. Her screen went black, her apartment plunged into silence. Her heart thundered in her chest as she stood, frozen, unsure of whether to move or hide. And then came the soft knock at the door. Not forceful. Not hurried. Just patient. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. Her phone was dead. The power was out. Her nearest neighbor was 3 floors down. She had no way of knowing who or what was on the other side. But deep inside, she understood, this wasn't a game anymore. This was the part where people disappeared. Where stories stopped getting told. Where the truth, unless uncovered quickly, might be buried forever. And in that moment, she had to make a choice: open the door and face whatever was coming, or run into the unknown in search of answers that might never be found. She didn't open the door. She waited. Minutes passed like hours, every sound amplified, every creak of the wood floor echoing like thunder in the dark. When she finally worked up the nerve to check the peephole, the hallway was empty. But lying on the ground just outside was a flash drive, no label, no note, just that small, innocuous rectangle of plastic and metal that now pulsed with terrifying potential. She hesitated for hours before plugging it into an old laptop she'd kept offline for editing projects. The moment the files loaded, the air seemed to thicken, and her heart began pounding louder than she thought possible. What she found inside didn't just deepen the mystery, it detonated everything she thought she knew about what was happening. The drive contained raw security footage, time-stamped and unedited, from the night of the original celebrity event. But it wasn't footage she had seen before. This wasn't the glitzy, filtered press material or the curated highlight reels shared by influencers. This was the behind-the-scenes version, the hidden view from surveillance cameras placed in corners and ceilings, meant to watch quietly and unnoticed. One of the clips showed the exact moment she'd photobombed the celebrity. But here was the twist: she hadn't stumbled into the photo by accident. In the footage, she clearly hesitated, glanced at someone off-screen, then stepped into the shot with an oddly calm expression. There was no trace of the confusion or spontaneity she remembered feeling. Watching herself through the lens of this footage, she barely recognized the person on screen. Confused and disoriented, she watched the moment again, zooming in, slowing it down. That's when she saw him, the man in the navy hoodie from the coffee shop, standing just beyond the velvet rope, motioning with a subtle nod like he was cueing her. It wasn't the first time she'd seen him, and now it was clear, he had been following her much longer than she realized. He hadn't just watched her from a distance. He had orchestrated this moment. And she had played her part without ever knowing. Shaken, she dug deeper into the flash drive. One folder was marked only by a symbol she recognized from a poster at the event, a strange, spiral-shaped logo she dismissed as part of the art installation. Inside were audio recordings, low quality, hard to hear, but one voice stood out, her mentor. Calm, articulate, and disturbingly matter-of-fact, discussing something called the image seed, and how certain visual moments could be planted to manipulate public behavior. It sounded like conspiracy theory junk at first, until she recognized another voice chiming in. Hers. Laughing, agreeing, talking about photography like it was a tool, not an art. These recordings were dated months before the viral photo ever happened. She dropped the laptop. Her hands were shaking. Her throat went dry. None of this made sense. She had no memory of ever having that conversation. No memory of being in the room, or part of any project like that. But the voice was undeniably hers. The laughter. The cadence. The details. It was like hearing a version of herself she didn't remember ever being. She scrambled for answers, old emails, calendar entries, even text threads with her mentor, but parts of her digital life were missing. Whole gaps. Days she couldn't fully recall. Trips she had chalked up to burnout now felt suspiciously unaccounted for. Had someone tampered with her memories? Or had she willingly participated in something and then forgotten it? The paranoia morphed into something else entirely. A possibility she hadn't dared consider. What if this entire mystery wasn't about surveillance or threats or career sabotage, but about control? What if someone had manipulated her not just from the outside, but from within? What if the photobomb hadn't been her chance moment of discovery, but her assignment? When she finally confronted her mentor face-to-face, she didn't accuse him directly. She simply asked him if he remembered the first day they met. He stared at her a moment too long before answering. Then he said something that turned her stomach. "You were already part of this before we met. You just didn't know it yet." That one sentence sent a jolt of ice through her spine. She demanded to know what he meant, but he simply smiled, that same unsettling smile she now recognized from those recordings, and said, "You'll understand soon enough. The timing was never random. You were chosen for how people see you." She left before he could say more, but the damage had been done. She wasn't just caught in someone else's plan, she had been part of building it. But how much? And why? Was it a social experiment? A psychological test? Something to do with viral marketing, deepfakes, AI-generated personas? None of it added up, but it didn't have to yet. What mattered now was that the foundation of everything she believed about herself, her past, her choices, even her memories, was now in question. And then, late that night, a new notification appeared on her phone. A private message from an unknown account. No profile photo. No bio. Just one sentence. They needed a story the world would follow. You were perfect. Suddenly, the story was no longer about discovering the truth. It was about finding out who she really was and what parts of her life had been real at all. A tool for tracking engagement metrics, viral triggers, behavior shifts. Her memories, her feelings, her relationships manufactured and reset like lines of code. But something had gone wrong this time. She was remembering. Breaking through. Waking up. And now they were trying to bury her again. She had no time left. The leak wasn't just an attack on her reputation, it was the reset button. Once public opinion turned, they'd pull the plug and rewrite everything. She had one shot to prove this cycle was real, to expose the truth before it disappeared with her. But as she backed away from the desk, she noticed the photo on the wall. A black and white portrait of a young woman holding a vintage camera, smiling in the background of a protest decades ago. It was her. Different haircut. Different clothes. But unmistakably her. The cycle hadn't just started recently. She had been a part of it for years. Maybe longer. And the real question now wasn't just how to stop it. It was whether she had ever been real at all. The night air was thick with the kind of electric pressure that settles just before a storm breaks, that silent vibration of something massive about to collide with everything in its path. She stood outside the facility's hidden entrance, her heartbeat pounding against her ribs like a war drum. It didn't look like much, just an old warehouse on the edge of the industrial district, the kind of building no one noticed because it had trained them not to. She knew this was the place, not just because the coordinates on the hard drive led her there, but because everything inside her screamed with certainty. This was the control hub. The nexus of the cycle. The place where stories like hers were created, edited, erased, and recycled for mass consumption. This was where the system lived. She had no backup. No safety net. Just a backpack with the drive, a recorder, a camera that couldn't be traced, and every shred of fury, betrayal, and desperate hope left in her. The plan was simple. Find the server room, get visual proof, upload it live to a decentralized stream, and finally show the world what was being done behind the curtain of their favorite trending moments. But plans, she knew by now, were fragile things, too easily shattered by the unexpected. Inside, the facility was cold and sterile, corridors humming with artificial light and quiet murmurs of machines she couldn't see. The deeper she went, the more surreal it became, walls lined with digital archives of faces and names, event logs showing viewer sentiment scores, emotional resonance heat maps, and charts tracking virality potential of individual humans. She passed a screen displaying her own face, split into dozens of micro-expressions, each tied to timestamps and predictive analytics. There was a section labeled Current Cycle, Anomaly Detected. She was the anomaly. And they knew. Before she could reach the mainframe, a voice echoed from the shadows. Calm. Measured. Familiar. You weren't supposed to get this far, it said, stepping into view. Her breath caught. It was the executive producer of the original celebrity event, the one who had given her the first photo credit. She hadn't thought of him in weeks. He'd disappeared after the photobomb went viral, his online profiles wiped, his name quietly removed from public credits. Now he stood before her, not shocked or angry, but impressed. Do you know how many times we've run this simulation? He asked, gesturing to the screens around them. How many versions of you we've tested? How often you almost figured it out, then chose comfort over truth? She didn't answer. She raised the camera, recording everything, but he didn't flinch. Go ahead, he said. Stream it. Tell them. But they won't believe you. They never do. That's the brilliance of it all. The moment you say it's a simulation, they call you paranoid. The moment you have proof, they call it fake. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. The system doesn't hide. It distracts. Your story isn't the lie. It's the smokescreen. He handed her a second flash drive, smaller than the one she had, marked only with the word prior. This one shows the beginning, he said. The real beginning. You think this started with a camera, a photobomb, a viral post. But it started long before that. You were part of this before you were even born. We don't just choose people, we build them. She didn't want to take it, but her hands moved on their own. As he turned away, walking back toward the dark hallway, she realized something. He wasn't here to stop her. He was here to show her how deep the rabbit hole really went. And that was more terrifying than any threat. With both drives, she finally reached the server room, a cathedral of data, glowing and alive, walls filled with humming processors and infinite archives. She plugged in the recorder, the stream went live, and for a moment, it felt like victory. Screens around the world lit up with her feed. Followers old and new tuned in. And for the first time, she told her story without filters, without scripts. She showed the data. She played the recordings. She revealed the truth. But just as she reached the crescendo of her revelation, the room flickered. Everything glitched once, twice, then held. She stared at the feed. Something was off. The viewers weren't reacting. No comments. No responses. No questions. Just silent watching. All of them. The same blank expressions. And that's when it hit her. She zoomed in on the viewers panel. All the usernames. All the profiles. None of them were real. The stream had never gone live. She wasn't exposing anything. She had walked into another simulation. A layer within a layer. She ripped out the cord, heart racing, and turned to leave, but the hallway was gone. The door she entered through was no longer there. Only a new screen remained, this one showing a single word. Cycle_08, beginning. And behind her, the camera began to record days blurred into each other after that final moment in the server room, the world outside feeling more like a dream she couldn't wake up from. The twisted realization had set in, she wasn't just a pawn in the game, she was the game itself. The world around her, the viral trends, the rising and falling influencers, the audience reactions, all of it was a feedback loop, a controlled experiment running in real time, testing how much people could be manipulated, how far they would go to seek the truth, how much they would believe when presented with only fragments of reality. She had been part of it all along, but now, for the first time, she wasn't just a character, she was the variable, the unpredictable element they couldn't control. The longer she sat with that thought, the more it sank in. The question wasn't just about whether she could escape the system, it was whether she could ever truly escape herself. After everything, the betrayal by MIA, the faceless threats, the endless manipulation, she was left standing in front of the one remaining truth. Nothing in her life had been entirely real. There had been moments of authenticity, yes, but they had been so carefully curated, so expertly crafted, that the line between genuine emotion and staged performance had become indistinguishable. And the worst part wasn't that the world had turned on her, it was that she had no idea who she even was anymore, who she had been before all of this started. Her face had been altered so many times, both on screens and in her own mirror, that she couldn't trace back to the original version of herself. She wondered if anyone could, if anyone had, or if it even mattered. She had become a reflection of the world she had once tried to capture with a camera, but now it felt like she was just another piece of its infinite narrative, forever shaped by algorithms beyond her control. But even as the weight of that existential realization bore down on her, something inside refused to let go. Maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was the final thread of humanity left in her, but she couldn't accept that this was it. She couldn't let the story end with her fading away into the next cycle, her memory wiped clean, her face redefined. So, she did what they had trained her to do, she fought. She fought against the narrative that had been written for her, against the control that had once seemed so absolute. And she found a way to break the system. Not by exposing it to the world, not by making a public spectacle or launching a global campaign, but by doing what no one had ever predicted. She erased herself, but in doing so, she became untouchable. She took the last piece of her own story, the one that no one had scripted, and she walked away. The months that followed were a strange kind of quiet. She disappeared from the public eye, but not in the way they had planned. She wasn't erased. She was simply gone. For the first time in what felt like forever, she existed on her own terms, disconnected from the feedback loops, free from the pressure of the next viral moment. She found herself in places she had never been, meeting people who didn't know her name, didn't care about her past, and didn't expect anything from her. She took pictures again, but this time, they were hers. Not for a brand, not for likes, not to feed into an algorithm. Just for the sake of capturing moments, of seeing the world as it was, without needing to twist it into something it wasn't. But even as she found peace, there was always the lingering thought, was this freedom, or just another layer of the story? As much as she wanted to believe she had escaped, a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that the system was still out there, still watching, still keeping track of her. The hardest thing to face wasn't the truth of the cycle, it was the realization that it had never really been about her. She wasn't the first, and she wouldn't be the last. There would always be someone else, someone new to manipulate, to test, to shape into the perfect narrative. And maybe that was the greatest twist of all. The story was never hers to begin with. It was everyone's. It was a story that had no ending, no resolution. It was just the next trend, the next viral moment, the next influencer waiting to be born. And in the quiet moments, when she thought no one was watching, she could almost hear the hum of the system waiting for its next subject. The question lingered, unanswered, at the edge of her thoughts. If you knew you were part of a cycle, could you ever truly escape it? Or was the fight to break free just another part of the plan? As she stood on a quiet street corner, looking out over the horizon, a notification buzzed on her phone, an anonymous message from a burner account, saying only, cycle_09, beginning. The screen went black. And she knew nothing had truly ended.